Which paradox just mind fricks a person? Please consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. Brahe's paradox. From Wiki, the observation that adding one or more roads to a road network can end up impeding overall traffic flow through it. The paradox was postulated in 1968 by German mathematician Dietrich Brahe, who noticed that adding a road to a particular congested road traffic network would increase overall journey time. So I know this is just a silly thing, but at my old work, my department was food service. In our prep room, you had to always wear an apron. Always, no exceptions. When leaving the prep room, you had to take your apron off to prevent cross-contamination. The bosses were trying to figure out where to put the hooks, inside in the back of the door, or outside on the wall. Edit. Always proofread before posting. That this page is intentionally left blank page. The page isn't even blank anymore. The Banach-Tarski paradox is one hell of a mindfrick. It's basically taking something and rearranging it to form another exact copy of itself while still having the complete original. Like taking a sphere, which has infinite points on it, and drawing a line from every point on its surface to the center, or the core of the sphere. Then you separate the lines from the sphere. But because there is infinite points, you now have an exact copy of the original sphere. It's kind of hard to explain here, so just watch the Vsauce video on it for a more in-depth explanation. Fry becoming his own grandpa. The UK triple lock that people moving to the UK experience. Need proof of address and photographic ID to open a bank account. Need a bank account and photographic ID to rent a place. Need a bank account and an address to get sent your photographic ID. Checkmate, atheists. The coastline paradox. The more accurately you measure a coastline, the longer it gets, to infinity. One of my favorites is Zeno's paradox. In order to leave my apartment, just for example, I have to walk halfway to my front door, then I have to walk half the remaining distance, then half the distance, ad infinitum. In theory, I should never be able to reach the door. Now I love this paradox, because we've actually solved it. It was a lively, well-discussed debate for millennia. At least a few early thinkers were convinced that motion was an illusion because of it. It was so persuasive an argument that people doubted their senses. Then Leibniz and Newton developed calculus, and we realized that infinite sums can have finite solutions. Paradox resolved. It makes me wonder what calculus we are missing to resolve some of these others. The ship of Theseus always kind of fricked me. So, there's this Greek dude called Theseus, and he's on a very long boat trip home. His ship needs repair. They stop, replace a few rotten boards, and continue. Due to the particularly strenuous nature of this very long trip, several more of these stops for repairs are made, until, by the very end, not a single board from the original vessel remains. Is this still the same vessel? If not, when did it cease to be? Pinocchio says my nose will grow after I finish this sentence. Does it? Jim is my enemy, but it turns out that Jim is also his own worst enemy, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So, Jim is actually my friend. But, because he is his own worst enemy, the enemy of my friend is my enemy. So, actually Jim is my enemy. But, the Boltzmann brain. The idea goes something like this. In any system, there is a tendency for entropy to increase, which is another way of saying that everything tends to spread out. In a room full of gas, the gas fills the room. It does not pack itself in a corner. However, because of the weirdness of quantum fluctuations, it is possible for particles to just spontaneously arrange themselves into more complex configurations. It might take trillions and trillions of years, but if you watched that room full of gas long enough, sooner or later you would see all of the gas pack itself into one corner before spreading out again, or you might see the gas arrange itself into a fully functioning human brain, complete with false memories, senses, and a brief spark of consciousness. Of course, entropy would quickly take over again. The brain would dissolve back into gas almost immediately. This is also hideously unlikely, but over an infinite time the laws of physics tell us this is not just likely, it is inevitable. So which are you, human, or Boltzmann brain enjoying the briefest moment of your fictional life before you dissolve back into space dust? Newcomb's paradox. There are two boxes, A and B. A contains either $1,000 or $0, and B contains $100. Box A is opaque, so you can't see inside. Box B is clear, so you can see for sure that there is $100 in it. Your options is to choose both boxes, or to choose only box A. There is an entity called the predictor, which determines whether or not the $1,000 will be in box A. How he chooses this is by predicting whether or not you will choose both boxes, or just box A. If the predictor predicts that you will 2 box, he will leave box A empty. If he predicts that you will 1 box, he will put the $1,000 in box A. He is accurate an overwhelming amount of the time, but not 100%. At the time of your decision, the contents of box A that is whether or not there is anything in it, are fixed, and nothing you do at that point will change whether or not there is anything in the box. It is a paradox of decision theory that rests on two principles of rational choice. According to the principle of strategic dominance, there are only two possibilities, and you don't know which one holds. Box A is empty. Therefore, you should choose both boxes to get $100 as opposed to $0. Box A is full. Therefore, you should choose both boxes to get $1,100 as opposed to just $1,000. Therefore, you should always choose both boxes, since under every possible scenario, this results in more money. But, according to the principle of expected value, choosing one box is superior because you have a statistically higher chance of getting more money. Most of the people who have gone before you who have chosen one box have gotten $1,000, and most that have chosen both boxes have gotten only $100. Therefore, if you analyze the problem statistically, or in terms of which decision has the higher probability of resulting in a higher outcome, you should choose only one box. Imagine 1 billion people going before you, and you actually seeing so many of them have this outcome. Any outliers became insignificant. In terms of strategic dominance, two boxing is always superior to one boxing because no matter what is in box A, two boxing results in more money. One boxing, on the other hand, has a demonstrably higher probability of resulting in a larger amount of money. Both of these choices represent fundamental principles of rational choice. There are two rival theories: causal decision theory, which supports strategic dominance, and evidential decision theory, which supports expected utility. It is pretty arcane but one of the most difficult paradoxes in contemporary philosophy. Robert Nozick summed it up well. To almost everyone, it is perfectly clear and obvious what should be done. The difficulty is that these people seem to divide almost evenly on the problem, with large numbers thinking that the opposing half is just being silly. The infinite hotel one is not exactly a paradox, but still a mindfreak. A hotel has an infinite number of rooms and can accommodate an infinite number of guests. One per room. A traveler walks up to the front desk and inquires about a room. Sadly, it's Infinity Day and an infinite number of people are in town celebrating, so every one of the rooms is full. However, the clever desk clerk realizes he can still fit the traveler in by asking everyone to move into the room number that's one higher than theirs, so the person in room 1 moves to room 2, room 2 moves to room 3, etc. Now room 1 is free for the traveler. However, just as the traveler has been accommodated, an infinite busload of people arrives looking for rooms. The hotel is surely full now, right? Nope. The clerk realizes he can ask everyone to move into a room that's twice the room number of their own. So room 1 moves to room 2, room 2 moves to room 4, room 3 moves to room 6, etc. Now all the odd-numbered rooms are empty and can be filled with the new guests. So in a sense, an infinitely full hotel is still infinitely empty. Psychology. Psychology is defined as the study of the human brain. That would mean that the human brain is teaching, studying, and learning from itself all at the same time. In a sense, the brain is the teacher, the textbook, and the student at the same time. The bootleg paradox. The main example is Beethoven, so I'll use him. If you were to go back in time, you would see Beethoven. But when you get there, you cannot find Beethoven anywhere. But you have all of his music sheets. So you create all of Beethoven's music, so technically, you are Beethoven. Now the real question is, where did the music come from, and how did the name Beethoven come to be? Paradox Interactive. Every time they release a new DLC, everyone loses their damn minds. Can a man drown in the fountain of eternal life? Cole's Law. Very simple. Some love it, but I can't stand it. Very common, too. If you ask Rick Astley for his copy of Disney Pixar's Up, do you think he'd give it to you? Because think about it, he's never gonna give you up. But, at the same time, if he doesn't give you up, then he's let you down. But he's never gonna let you down. So which is it? The universe either has to be infinite or we're in the box. However, if you ever reach the end that closes the universe in, it would be impossible for something to not be on the other side of the enclosure. At least to us, since nothingness doesn't really exist in human perception. Takes experience to get most decent jobs. But how do you get a good job without experience? How anything began. Whether you believe in creationism or the Big Bang, etc., where did the beginning come from? God had to have started at some point. Those atoms that exploded into the universe had to come from somewhere. Where the frick did anything come from? Not a paradox, but a mind frick. Imagine a drop of water forming at the tip of a leaf in the Amazon jungle, high up in a tree. That drop is teeming with life, right? Microscopic life forms, interacting with each other, living their life, right? Kinda as if it was a tiny world, or a tiny universe in there. The life forms in there more than probably have no idea they are in a water droplet. They have no idea there's a whole world beyond it. They're so freaking tiny, how could they know? I mean, we don't know what lies beyond our observable universe, do we? That drop falls towards the floor, and during its fall, life in there keeps thriving and keeps going on, and then the drop hits the floor. A hot stone and evaporates. Poof goes that entire microworld. Gone. In the blink of an eye. And not a single life form in that drop could do anything to prevent it. I mean, even if there was intelligent life in it, it simply might not have had the means to discover what lies beyond their observable universe. The water droplet. They had no idea they were in a droplet, falling to their inevitable doom. For them, the time it takes for the droplet to form and fall down might feel like an eternity, even if for us it's really short. After all, humanity feels like an eternity for us. But on a historical scale, we've existed for a ridiculously short amount of time. Entire civilizations might have existed in there while the droplet was forming and falling. Imagine that our observable universe is the water droplet and we are the life forms teeming inside it. For all we know, our universe might currently forming on a leaf or even falling already, and at some point we'll hit the floor and we'll be gone. Just like that. Nobody will give a frick, just like we don't give a frick about that tiny universe in the water droplet that just disappeared. We might be one of the many universes that disappears like this. Just like that water droplet is one of the many. And not a single person could have known or prevented this. If you go back in time and kill your grandfather before your parents were conceived, then you could never have been born. If you were never born, then you never went back in time and killed your grandfather. That means you were born. However, it also means you did kill your grandfather, which means you weren't born. My absolute favorite is the free will paradox. If God exists as is stated in the Bible, then he is omnipotent, all-powerful, has the ability to do literally anything one could conceive of. Omnipresent, is everywhere at once at all times within all of time. Omniscient, knows literally everything, the complete summation of all knowledge that has existed, currently exists, or will exist. The Bible also states that God gave man free will, the ability to believe what you want, do what you want, and be in control of your own life. We choose to believe in God or not believe in God, be good, be evil, etc. Even in all God's power, he won't influence our choices directly. They are completely our own. The issue here is this: if God is omniscient and knows all things, then he knows our past, present, and future. He knows every tiny little detail about our lives, beginning to end. Even if there are multiple timelines, he knows every detail about alternate reality as too. There is not one single fact unknown to God. If this is in fact the case, and God created all with full knowledge of everyone's entire life, then free will cannot exist, as our future is known and predetermined. If not, then God is not omniscient and is an imperfect and flawed being capable of failures and mistakes. Either God gave us free will, or he is omniscient, but it cannot be both. Please subscribe if you liked the video. It really helps the channel to grow. See you again.